Assalamu alaikum and good greetings. So today we'll be watching a video titled Christian Reads Quran episode 6. This is again by Dex Vanderwell. We have watched the previous 5 episodes. I'll put the links in the description box below if you wish to watch those reactions. So without further ado, let's watch.
All right, what is up, everyone? My name is Dax. If you don't know me, welcome to this channel. On my channel, I like to compare the two largest religions in the world, Christianity and Islam. I like to talk about the differences between them, the commonalities between them. Right now, I'm in a series called Christian Reads Quran. This is episode 6. Welcome. I hope you've seen the first 5. If you haven't, you got time. You got plenty of time. I think it'll take you like an hour and a half. But you can put it on 2 times speed. You can put it on 1.5 speed, and you can catch up real quick. So,
by the way, this is at 1.25 speed. Normally, I listen at higher speed. But for reaction video, if I put at higher speed, then it would be I just do not want it to be too fast for others, especially if you watch this with higher speed. Then what he say will be super high speed.
Christian Reads Quran episode 6. Let's do this thing. So I'm going through the Quran from the front to the back, leaving comments, questions, and objections from a Christian perspective. And I'm really excited about this episode. There's a few hot topics, 1,000-year-old debates that come up in this episode, and I'm really excited to hear your guys' thoughts on them. So if you're enjoying the series, please drop a like, please subscribe to the channel if you want more content comparing Christianity and Islam. And without further ado, actually no, with one more further ado, this comment was left on last episode.
By the way, normally when watching this series, I open up my Quran in my phone so that I can refer to the verses that he's talking about.
5, and I just thought this comment was so kind and so awesome that I wanted to share it. So for privacy reasons, I'm not gonna say the person's name who commented this, but someone commented on last episode, the world would be a better place if Muslims and Christians respected each other like this. Keep it going. Now that is a compliment to me, I received, but also it's a compliment to all of you, because this person was in the comment section, look at all the dialogue, and they were thinking, wow, the world would be a better place if Christians and Muslims could respect each other like this. We have to keep this going. And I would say, without a doubt, yes, there have been some comments that have been more on the mean side, assuming my intentions incorrectly, things like that. But I don't care, because I for the most part, the response has been very positive, very kind. I've been trying my best to respect you guys, and you guys have been respecting me. And it's been great, and I feel like we've actually made progress in the realm of truth, which is the goal. So let's keep it going. Episode 5, highlight. Instead of doing full recaps, they take too long, so I'm just going to say the highlight. The number one thing I learned from last episode, from episode 5, is this idea of bearing another person's sin. I didn't know that the idea of bearing another person's sin was in the religion of Islam. It's a little different, which I also learned.
Yeah, if you haven't watched my reaction to episode 5, feel free to do so. I did comment on this because it's not, the verse actually not saying you bear other people's sin. It's more of you will have sin onto you because you have led them to sin, right? It's not like you bear other people's sin, meaning taking away their sin onto you and they are, they are free from sin. No, they sin, but if you let people to sin, just like if you let people to do good deeds, you will be rewarded, or in this case punished with sin. Similarly when they're acting upon what you have shown them, for example, right? So it's not like bearing other people's sin, it is your sin added to you because of what you have done to other people.
But there is some sort of commonality. If you don't know, in Christianity, at the heart of our faith, we believe that Jesus decided to take on the sins of the world. He decided to bear the sins of humankind, and now Jesus is the way to salvation. That's what Christian theology says. In a similar way, Islam does.
I'm interested about, is there any verses in the Bible that indicates when or what is said when, because he said Jesus decided to take the sin of humanity, right? So when did Jesus decided that? What was being said to indicate clearly that is the case?
Believe that someone else's sins can be added onto you, as in you're carrying the burden of another's sins. But the difference is, it's if you've led that person astray. So if you've done something that has turned someone toward a sin, or that has helped cause a sinful habit in their life, they bear the burden of that sin, but also you do. You do as well. So there is.
So what he's saying here is more accurate to the verse in the Quran, unlike in the previous video. But he still thinks there's the commonalities, something common between the two concepts. When I don't see it, because Jesus do not lead other people to sin, hence he have to carry the sins of others, right? It's totally different concept where you, out of your pure heart, you want to take other people's sin onto you so that they do not have to carry any sin. That is totally different than both of you have to be responsible for the sin.
Still this idea of, yes, someone else's sins could be counted towards your sins because you carry the burden of that sin because you sort of caused them to go away. There's also this idea that on Judgment Day, you can sort of step in the place of other people, and that you can intercede on someone's behalf, or you can like fast on someone's behalf in order to gain them more like good points or something like that. So that is one thing I learned about Islamic theology from last episode. I learned a little bit.
I think that is from some other people's comment, because it's not really related to the verse about the discussion among Muslim about whether you can, for example, your parents have passed away and then you do good deeds and you wish the reward, the what's the word, because for the negative we have sin, right? For the positive I'm not sure, it's the ajr, right? You wish for that to be given to your parents, for example, right? That is totally different story and different concept and different discussion than the actual verse that he's highlighting.
Bit more about what does this mean to bear another person's sins in Islam. There's a commonality there, yet very different, because Jesus, our sins aren't his fault. That's not what Christians believe. We freely.
So it's very different. I think he acknowledged this in this video because he did read the comment and noticed that it's fundamentally different, even though in previous video he seems to think that is very parallel.
Chose to sin, and he freely chose to die for our sins so that we could know him, so that we could have a relationship with him. So that was my highlight from episode 5. That's something that I learned. And in this episode, as we hop in, we're going through surahs 17, 18, 19. Again, I'm reading all of these surahs, but there's too many things to possibly talk about. So I'm just really pulling one idea from each surah that is relevant to the Christian-Muslim debate or the Christian-Muslim conversation. So in surah 17 is called Al-Isra. Al-Isra refers to the night journey, which is referenced in the first verse of this surah. We talked about it elsewhere. I think we talked about the night journey 2 episodes ago. And so we'll talk about it a little bit more here. But this is the first verse of Al-Isra. This is what it says. Glory be to him, talking about Allah in this context, who carried his servant, talking about Muhammad, by night from the sacred mosque to the farthest mosque, that we might show him some of our signs. So this verse right here, Surah 17, Al-Isra, verse 1 is referring to the night journey of Muhammad. So as the story goes, Muhammad had this night journey where he was taken up on a winged horse led by the angel Gabriel.
So those are not in the Quran, right? It might be in the hadith, the details of what did he write on, etc. Right? The Quran just said that Allah transport Prophet Muhammad SAW from here to here and onwards, right?
All the way to heaven, where he ascended through different levels of heaven, and on this journey he interacted with different prophets like Jesus, like Moses, like Abraham, and then eventually met Allah himself. In Surah 53:9, it says that Muhammad stood a couple bow lengths away from Allah. So this night journey is very important, very pivotal to Islamic theology. And also the reason I brought it up a couple episodes ago is I was asking the question, did Muhammad ever interact with God himself? Right? Because I know that he...
Okay. So now I remember how does it related to what we have said in the previous video. Because he did ask that question, whether that interaction have ever happened.
Interacted with Gabriel, but I asked the question, did he ever meet Allah? Did he ever have proximity to Allah? And some people brought up the night journey. So we get the details from the hadith that Muhammad went up, had this night journey in the heavenly realms, met these prophets, met Allah, that sort of thing. And not to comment on the truth value of this, I do have some questions, like how can we validate that the night journey happened? How can I test that this really happened? Because if Muhammad just says he had this night journey, like how do we really know? What kind of evidence is there? Now, I have heard some things, but I haven't studied it myself enough to comment on it in this video. But
that's interesting question. It's a valid question, but the same question would go to every single thing written by the author of the Bible then, right? Meaning, how do you know this is actually true?
The reason I'm bringing it up here is just an observation on the night journey and why it's so pivotal and important. The night journey establishes a connection between Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. This is why the night journey has been such a big deal. Not only is there the claim that he interacted with Allah, but also that he interacted with Moses, Abraham, Jesus. And so this journey, documented in a deeper manner in the hadith, is one of the reasons why Muslims try to show so much respect toward Judaism and Christianity. Because the idea in Islam is that the Quran is the final revelation that is a part of this larger revelation from the prophets to the Psalms to the Gospel and finally the Quran. That's
Okay, yeah. So it's not really with regard to Christianity and Judaism. It's more of previous prophets and previous scriptures. Of course, the spin-off of those scriptures are, Judaism and Christianity. But what was being taught is not Christianity and Judaism. It is Islam. Throughout, right, from Adam until Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Islamic theology. And a lot of that comes from the night journey, this idea that Muhammad went into heaven, and so Moses, Abraham, Jesus, their revelations were validated through this journey because we saw that they were in heaven and they're treated as prophets. So the night journey in Islamic theology establishes this connection between it and then also Christianity, Judaism, that sort of thing. With that being said, obviously I don't think that all these are coherent. I think Islam contradicts what was revealed before. So let's get a little bit more into that in Surah 18.
So what was being revealed before, I assume he is thinking about Bible, I think. Right? Hence his remark. But if we do not have that assumption to begin with, then that remark wouldn't be said, right?
Al-Kahf. So this surah translates to the cave, and we see the mention of the cave in response to some Jewish scholars challenging Muhammad. They challenge him, they say, well, if the Quran is from God, then talk to us about these 3 different stories that had some sort of truth value to them. And one of those stories was about these young men who lived in a cave for some time. So with that being said, the last surah, Al-Isra, the night journey, I just mentioned, Islamic theology says that it's connected, directly connected to Judaism, to Christianity, and then Islam comes in as this final revelation. One of the reasons why I don't accept Islam as true, one of the ideas that confuses me about the claims of the Quran, is that the Quran says that God has no child. God has no son, God has no daughter. But as a Christian, following Jesus, I believe Jesus is the Son of God, the ultimate and unique, eternal Son of God.
What does that mean? And if you're a Christian, do you agree at that specific way of describing Jesus? I'm interested. Because I have heard variation of way of describing it. The one triune being or something, and then this is like, so is it simultaneously true for all Christian that this is one, but Jesus is, because he said the issue with Islam is that God says that God said God do not have any son, daughter, blah blah blah, and why that is problematic, because he believed that Jesus is the son, hence God have a son. Is that accepted by all Christianity?
But in Surah 18 Al-Kahf, this is verse 4, it says that he may warn those who say God has taken a child. So in this context, this verse is talking about Allah and why he sent his book, and it says that he sent his book so that he could warn those who say that God has taken a child. Now, when it says that God has taken a child, I was reading some commentary here from this one Islamic scholar, and this could be referring to, I believe it's, who is it, the pagan, yeah. This verse could be referring to the pagan Arabs who thought that the angels were daughters of Allah, but it could also be talking about Christians who believe that Jesus is the Son of God. And of course, in other places, it explicitly calls out this belief within Christianity that God has a son, because we say that Jesus is the Son of God. So with this idea, the Quran says that God has no child, no son, no daughter, but something that I wanted to ask is, why do Muslims accept Jesus as a prophet when he clearly claimed to be the Son of God?
What kind of question is this? Why do Muslims accept Jesus as a prophet when he clearly claimed to be the Son of God? So is this, number one, when he clearly claimed, is it referring to the Bible? Because if it is, then I'm not sure whether he knew the perspective towards the Bible, especially from Muslim. That's number one. Number two, if we want to talk about, Son of God in the Bible, I think many people have talked about it in terms of what does it mean. Is it mean literal? Because what about the other Son of God? Right? Does it mean Son of God in the same way as well? So why do you differentiate? How do you differentiate between, are you imposing certain things, or is explicitly understood as such, etc.? So there's a long discussion of that. that the premise of this question is a problematic one.
This is where I'm saying I think there's a disconnect between you read the prophets, you read the Psalms, then the Gospel, and in the Gospels specifically, Jesus claims to be the Son of God, but then the Quran comes along and says Allah has no son. So
this is interesting because I think he have already read Surah number 3, right? Surah Ali Imran. If I'm not mistaken, it is in Surah Ali Imran where Allah cited that Allah asked Isa alayhi salam or Jesus, did you actually tell these people that, you know, this kind of things? And Jesus basically says that, you know, I have never seen anything other than worship only one God, right? So from the Quran perspective, Jesus never claimed to be whatever the Christian think Jesus have claimed based on what they believe in the Bible, right? Jesus have never said that, right? But they believe Jesus said that, of course. So the question back to you is, why did you believe Jesus said that, and how do you validate that Jesus actually have said that concretely? What is the level of confidence that you have comparing to the level of confidence that we have on the Quran being the word of God?
So for me, it's just sort of weird why Muslims would accept Jesus as a prophet when he claimed to be the Son of God, even though the Quran denies that God has a son. This is sort of the thought that stirs within me. If you don't think Jesus has claimed to be the Son of God, it's very clear in the Gospels. Like the earliest documentaries or the earliest biographies on the life of Jesus, he clearly claims to be the Son of God. In the earliest biography, the book of Mark, we see before the high priest asks Jesus, "Are you the Son of the Blessed One?" Jesus says, "I am." In John 10:36, he clearly says he is God's son. And all throughout the Gospels, he constantly uses this language of Abba, meaning father, calling God his own father. And not in just some general sense, like we would say Father God, but Abba had this special, unique, intimate relationship connotated with it. Without a doubt, Jesus claimed to be the Son of the living God. So one of the reasons why I don't think the Quran is true is because it says God has no son, yet I think Jesus clearly claimed to be the Son of God. And so I see this sort of internal contradiction within Islamic theology.
It's not internal, right? Because what he's saying is that he don't believe in the Quran because it contradicts the gospel. If I say I don't believe in the gospel because it contradicts the Quran, it's basically two people saying the same thing fundamentally, right? Because you already believe in one, hence the other one that is contradicting is being rejected. It's not really scrutinizing the evidence.
Unless you say that Jesus wasn't a prophet, or that he was a liar, or you could say that the Gospels aren't trustworthy to communicate what Jesus truly said, even though they're way earlier than the Quran is.
Earlier doesn't really mean anything, right? Validity and earlier is not correlating with one another. I'm not sure why he brought that up.
Go a bunch of different routes, but these are just thoughts that come to my mind. Also, though, it's not just that Jesus says that he is the Son of God. We see in the Old Testament, this is Exodus 4, 2 Samuel 7, we see that Israel is called the Son of God. And then also in 2 Samuel 7, it says the Messiah who is going to come is or will be the Son of God. So on the one hand, I see the prophets, I see specifically in the Torah, I see the Psalms, and I see the Gospel all communicating that God has a son, this idea of the Son of God. But then
did he mention that he accepts Israel as the Son of God? And in that case, did he see it as the same or different way that Jesus is the Son of God?
Quran says God has no son, and so I don't see these two ideas matching up. So I wanted to pose the question, why do Muslims accept Jesus as a prophet when he clearly claims to be the Son of God? How do you guys respond to that? What thoughts come to your mind? What objections come up for you? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and how you guys talk about this idea. And last but not least, Surah 19, Miriam. So Miriam is just Mary in English, Miriam. I believe this is Arabic. Is Miriam Arabic? Might be Hebrew.
Of course, in Arabic it's Maryam, right?
Who knows? I should know. I should have Googled it. But for now, this surah is titled Mary, Surah 19. And specifically, this Mary, it's talking about Mary, the mother of Jesus, which is really important for the comment that I want to make on this idea. So this is verse 27/28. It's talking about Mary, and it says, "They said, O Mary, Mary, the mother of Jesus, thou hast brought an amazing thing, O sister of Aaron." So the Quran is saying Mary, the mother of Jesus, is the sister of Aaron. This is what I want to talk about. Some of you probably already know where I'm going. I haven't been exposed to this yet, but in my studies it brought up, so I was like, cool, this is the perfect time to talk about it. So the question I want to pose is this. Now, this has been debated for a long time. It's a popular argument in Christian Islamic apologetics, but why does the Quran say that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is the sister of Aaron? If you don't know why this is a problem or why this has been debated, basically, Mary, the mother of Jesus, is not Mary or Miriam seen in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, we see Moses and Aaron. They have a sister named Mary. So Miriam, in the Old Testament, during the times of the Exodus, she is the sister of Aaron and of Moses and the daughter of Imran. But in the Quran, right here in another verse, it says that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is the sister of Aaron and the daughter of Imran. And so from a, let's say from a historical standpoint or from a skeptical standpoint, from a Christian standpoint, it seems that Muhammad has confused these two Marys. He's saying that Mary, the mother of Jesus, he thinks that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is actually Miriam, who was the sister of Aaron and Moses. This seems to be a clear historical error in the Quran. Now, of course, to be fair, yes, I studied this and I was trying to understand what Islamic apologists would say to this. And some apologists, this Shabir Ali, Dr. Shabir Ali, I watched a video of him responding to this, and he gave a couple arguments. The first one he said is, well, maybe Mary had a brother named Aaron. Maybe Mary, the mother of Jesus, had a brother named Aaron. Is this possible? Yeah, it's possible that she, in the first century, had a brother named Aaron. The problem with that, though, is I would say we don't have any historical evidence of this. And also, the fact that the Quran says that Mary is the sister of Aaron and the daughter of Imran, it seemed to clearly be talking about Miriam in the Old Testament. To say both of those together is sort of confusing. But also, Muhammad, the prophet, was specifically asked, well, I don't believe he's a prophet, but of course, you know what I'm saying. Muhammad was directly asked about this problem, and that's not the answer he gave. He didn't say, well, Mary, the mother of Jesus, had a brother named Aaron. He gave this other answer. So, in a hadith, or in multiple hadiths, Muhammad addresses this problem. There's Christians and Muslims come to him and they're like, hey, why did you say that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is the sister of Aaron when Aaron lived thousands of years before? This doesn't make sense. So Muhammad was asked about this, and in response, he said, well, during this time, in the New Testament world, in antiquity at this time, it was common to name someone after their ancestors. So Mary, the mother of Jesus, was probably named after Miriam in the Old Testament, who was the sister of Aaron. So Muhammad is saying, well, when I say that this Mary is...
So he did not really bring forth the hadith details, so I cannot refer to that myself to really comment on this hadith.
Is the sister
because this is the Quranic verse, Ya Ukhtu Harun.
Of Aaron. I'm just saying that in a metaphorical sense. I'm using an idiom to denote that she was named after Miriam in the Old Testament. Or I'm just saying Mary is the sister of Aaron because she descended from Aaron and Moses and Miriam. That was Muhammad's response. Now, the reason why this has been so controversial is because basically he says, oh, when I say, oh, sister of Aaron, I'm just using that as a metaphor. And he said during this time, this metaphor was popular. A lot of people would recognize that this is just a metaphor. The problem with that is that the Christians and Muslims at this time didn't recognize this. They didn't recognize that sister of Aaron is a metaphor because it wasn't a common metaphor. When we look at the New Testament specifically, we don't see anyone being called anything like this. We don't see anyone being called the sister of Moses or the brother of Abraham. Yet, Muhammad says this was a popular metaphor that he threw out there that people should recognize. But the problem is people didn't recognize it, and it probably wasn't a popular metaphor.
It is interesting if any hadith indicate as if Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the one choosing the words in the Quran, right? Because he is telling this and he didn't really actually bring forth the hadith, so I cannot refer to the hadith directly, but the way he's conveying it as if Muhammad is saying that he personally choose the words of the Quran when it's never the case.
The closest thing we have to this, I know we're getting a little technical, but I'm just literally, these were my thoughts as I was writing them down, so I'm just going to give you guys the real thoughts. The closest thing we have to this in the New Testament is the closest thing we have to this in New Testament is Jesus is called the son of David or the son of Abraham. But that makes sense with genealogies. If someone is said to be the son of or daughter of, then that means that they likely descended from that person. So if Mary, the mother of Jesus, was just called the daughter of Imran, that would make sense. But it's the fact that Muhammad says that she is the daughter of Imran and the sister of Aaron, that's what causes so much confusion, and that's why people are really skeptical of this idea. It seems that Muhammad, from a historical standpoint, it seems that he just made a mistake, and it seems that he's just trying to cover that mistake sometime later. If you're sitting there watching this video and you're shaking your head and you're like, no, Muhammad wouldn't do that, he was clearly right about this, then here's my challenge to you. Why does the Quran say that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is the sister of Aaron? Why would Muhammad call Mary the daughter of Imran and also the sister of Aaron? But specifically, since Muhammad says, well, it was a popular metaphor in the New Testament world, what you would have to do is you have to demonstrate how that is a popular metaphor, or you need to give evidence that it was a popular metaphor. You need to give evidence from history that a lot of people were called the brother of Abraham or the brother of David or something like this. You have to give evidence showing that this was a popular metaphor in the New Testament world. Now, the problem is Muhammad doesn't give any examples. He just says, oh, it was a popular metaphor, and then leaves it at that. But if he gave some examples to back this up, then that would...
It's very hard for, of course, I do understand if you have done some reading outside and did not really want it to present it as an academic point here. But when he's challenging this question and posing as if, Muhammad did or actually says it in a certain way, when I do not have any way to confirm that, hence the question becomes not a question that I can really entertain.
Would be convincing, but he doesn't, so that's where the confusion lies. So again, just because I'm giving you guys my honest thoughts throughout this series, from my standpoint, it seems that Muhammad got confused about Mary and Miriam. It seems like he thought that they were the same person, and then later when asked about it, it seems that he was just trying to cover that up, and so he said, oh, well, that was just a metaphor. People just used it. People would just say sister of Aaron. It's just metaphorical. It was an idiom. But I don't see any historical evidence that that really was an idiom or that this would be recognized as such. And so that's why I'm asking for specific evidence for it. With that being said, those are all my thoughts from episode, what is this? From Christian Reads Quran, episode 6. I hope you guys are enjoying this video in the series as much as I am. Thank you so much for watching this far along. Thank you for watching this episode. I know this episode, I gave a couple challenges, but I'm going to recap all of my thoughts, questions, objections down below. So just look at the top comment. I'll pin it, and you can look at stuff there. Also, before you like and subscribe, I wanted to say I'm going to post an episode this week and the next week, and then I'm going to take a few weeks off. I'm going...
All right, so I think that's the end, right? To the verse, actually, right? It's not a claiming, because I think he did put the quote, right? Where's the quote? Is there a quote? Yeah. O Mary, O sister of Harun, Ya ukhtu Harun, right? So this is not a verse that the Quran is saying who Mary is, but it is telling what the dialogue that has happened, right? Ya ukhtu Harun is actually what is spoken to the person in the story, right? So just to clear it up, in the case of it doesn't really present as if meaning, some discussion. Anyway, yep. So that's episode 6. Of course, the biggest, the main theme, I think, is in terms of the contradiction, and personally, I think that is, just from a sharing perspective, right? Meaning, I always reflect everything from my perspective and my standpoint from a Muslim point of view, right? Hence, when I say certain thing from Islamic background, I'm just saying as such, right? So it doesn't. It is different when I'm actually presenting an argument for others to consider. So those two different things. So I do not have any problem with him as a Christian that present his perspective from a Christian point of view, looking at other information, right? But when he poses a question as if everyone have to accept that Christian point of view, as if everyone have to accept that gospel is a valid source that everyone have to comply with, etc. That is weird to me personally. Anyway, so with that, thank you for watching. See you next time.